broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Good evening and welcome to Behind the Headlines. My name is Timothy Nyangweso. A lot has been discussed, especially come January 15th to the 25th, 2024. Every road will be leading here, or every flight will be leading to Uganda. We're talking about two summits that will be happening in this country, the non-aligned movement, but also the G77 plus China. And we'll be wondering exactly what will be happening there. These two summits, one, the non-aligned movement was formed in 1961. It was formed against the pro-Soviet Union and pro-America, that countries that just wanted to be in the middle there to sort out the issues they had. There are 120 countries, and they'll be all represented here, and what will that mean for Uganda? The biggest question is, what benefit does Uganda get from this? When we look at also the G77, which also is referred to as the Global South, what does that mean for us? 134 countries involved in this. What benefit does Uganda get politically, economically, also on the diplomatic front? The integration in there, the culture, the diversity, what will Uganda benefit? But let me show you what exactly will be happening. So this is a map of the whole world there, and the global north is right there. You just put an arch all over it and come down. The other countries that are involved are Australia and New Zealand. But when we talk about countries in Africa and down to South America there, those are most of the countries that are in the NAM there. That's the discussion we're having today, and we're discussing the benefits, looking at what happens today with meetings, conferences, and exhibitions. Will Uganda benefit in all fronts, or shall we see what the president says, exhibitions and the benefits of tourism? Let me introduce the panel today. We have a distinguished panel, and on the extreme end is the Minister in charge of ICT and National Guidance. Dr. Chris Baryomunsi is here with us, especially as a mouthpiece of government, to put perspective to this discussion and to also help us understand how prepared is government for these summits. Next to him is no stranger. If you're talking about anything the United Nations, he's there. Uganda's permanent representative at the United Nations, His Excellency Ambassador Adonia Ayebare, is with us today. And also he's one of those at the forefront, even with the media launch, to explain to us what benefits and what does this mean and how did we get here. Next to him is a person that is seasoned in banking, but also is one that we talk to, especially when we want to talk to the grassroots person, Omuntu Wawansi. He is Honorable Paul Omara, Member of Parliament for Tuke County, and he's here to discuss everything an ordinary person would benefit from such a summit. He is the old man of the clan, the chief executive of the Independent magazine. We normally refer to him, since he made 101 years old, or 111 as he claims. He is no stranger to us here. Andrew Mwenda comes in to discuss the diplomacy, but also what looks outside there in the globe in looking to Uganda there. Finally, she's the only lady today to be able to represent the gender on that side. Dr. Ati Magnes, woman member of Parliament for Amolata district there. She's here to also help us put perspective on the gender aspect, but also what Uganda can be benefiting from all this and more. So without even going any further, you can be part of the show. Go to our social medias, X, our platform there, UBC Behind the Headlines. Let us know what you think. Or text us or WhatsApp us on 0709 60 25 92. My first question will go straight to Mr. Ambassador. And the question is, how did Uganda get here? Ambassador Ayebare, if you could help us put perspective. How did we get here as a country? What rigorous process got us here to be able to host both these summits, even as I come up there? Over to you, Ambassador.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me this evening. And good to see friends here on the stage. That's an excellent question. How did Uganda get here? It's been a long journey. Uganda, let me state that Uganda is the first country to chair both non-aligned movement and the group of 77. How we got here is that it was a turn of Africa to chair the non-aligned movement. And Uganda, after vigorous competition with other friendly countries, was chosen to chair non-aligned movement. And as you correctly said, the majority of countries, of member states of non-aligned movement are African countries, 53 of them. One, South Sudan, which is not a member, hopefully, if there is consensus and all countries agree, they will join in Kampala in January. And that will be the highlight of the summit, so that all African countries are members of NAM. So we were endorsed by Africa to represent Africa as the chair of NAM. So we're an African candidate for chairing NAM. And other African countries in the past have chaired NAM. They include South Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Egypt, and Algeria. So it's an honor to be part of the elite club to chair the non-aligned movement. And you know the principles of NAM from Bandung in the 1950s, you know, that really led to the decolonization of the global south, as you called it. So those, and also Uganda, our constitution in the foreign policy objective says we are non-aligned, chapter 28. So constitutionally obliged to really, chairing NAM fits within our supreme law, which is the constitution. So that's where we are, and we are backed up by the whole of Africa to chair NAM, but also other developing countries. As you've been following, Uganda, it takes principled stands at the international scene. You know, we defend interests of the global south. And then sometimes when we talk about non-aligned movement, we forget the poor cousin, which is the G77. But also, I must clarify that we are not hosting technically the G77 summit. We are hosting what they call the Third South Summit, which includes G77 countries, not plus China and China. China technically is not a member state, but it works with the G77. So this Third South Summit is the third time it takes place, and it has never taken place in Africa. The first one took place in Cuba. The second one took place in Qatar. This is the first time it is taking place in Africa. We were supposed to host it before COVID in 2019, but it was postponed. Now we are hosting it back to back with NAM. And both organizations are unique. They represent the interests of the global south in the multilateral forums. So these are the two only institutions. So Uganda is going to take leadership. Forget about the summit. After the summit, the business starts of really representing the global south on the international scene. That's a big responsibility for Uganda. And as the show goes on, the benefits are many. Leveraging this position.
Sticking with you, Mr. Ambassador, give us a sneak peek on what the agenda looks like, what the specifics inside there. Why should Ugandans really anticipate for it?
What Uganda should really anticipate is a lot of visitors, high-level visitors. These are intergovernmental meetings. NAM is 116 member states, and then have observer states. So you are really almost looking at over 150 governments represented here. I think this is the largest gathering of countries Uganda has ever hosted since independence. And this really presents opportunities, and of course, obvious ones for tourism. There will be visitors. But also for potential investments. There is now, with what is going on globally, South-South cooperation, you know, and here my brother Paul will tell you that ODA, Official Development Assistance from the Global North, is dwindling. But countries of the Global South, members of NAM and G77, have a lot of resources. Look at China, look at India, you know, look at others. If we can work together, and we're already working together under South-South cooperation, even within African countries, there is a lot of potential. And the agenda will be geared towards deepening South-South cooperation for the benefit of all.
Thank you very much. Let me get to the Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, when you were part of this NAM and also the Global South there, the third Global South, the 19th NAM summit there, why should Ugandans be interested? Why should anyone be interested to be part of this or even to follow it?
Yes. Thank you very much, and I want to greet my fellow panelists. Like ambassadors clearly explained, these are very big platforms where many countries are going to be involved. In the case of NAM, like you had, 116 countries plus others in observer status, then the G77 and China. Of course, some of the countries cut across, they belong to both groups. But these summits or this meeting is a huge forum where we are going to be interacting with several other governments. And therefore, it comes with lots of opportunities and benefits. The first one, which we must appreciate, is that it's a vote of confidence in Uganda, because there are those who always attempt to write the political epitaph of this country, Uganda, as if it is insignificant, as if it is not recognized, but by the global community all agreeing, generating consensus that these meetings take place in Uganda, it means there is confidence and the world appreciates the stand and the positioning of Uganda and the contribution and the role of Uganda, particularly our leader, General Yoweri Museveni, the way he has led the country. So it's a sign of confidence in the country. Secondly, you have also seen these, like say, travel advisories, the threats, withdrawing AGOA, and so forth. And we have said yes, there are those biases against Uganda, but also there are other areas in the world that have interest in Uganda. When you look at, say, the global markets, the South-South collaboration, all these countries. So an engagement with these countries definitely provides an opportunity for us to have business linkages, to have partnerships, to open new frontiers for our business and trade opportunities. We shall definitely have these general discussions, but also bilateral engagements with different governments, different countries. There is going to be a business and a trade summit which will precede the political discussions of the leaders, and therefore there are many opportunities. But also when many leaders converge here in Kampala, then the local economy is also boosted. These people are going to stay in our hotels. These people are going to be buying items. So even the lowest person will benefit in one way or the other. You can even see the kind of infrastructure developments which we are investing in preparation for this conference. So in all ways, there are many benefits. And I'm sure following the summit, there will be new relationships which we shall forge with a number of countries. We are looking for markets for our products, tea, coffee, meat, poultry products, all these. And this is an opportunity for us to discuss with many partners from all over the world. So it's a great opportunity for the country, and we should prepare ourselves to tap into these opportunities, and definitely Uganda will not be the same in terms of our international engagement, in terms of having new opportunities which should be available for us as a country. So we welcome this conference, and we are working around the clock and doing everything possible to make sure that we have a successful conference.
And sticking with you, Mr. Minister, yes. I'm glad you've said there's a trickle-down effect to an ordinary Ugandan, but I also want to quote Mr. Ambassador when he said there's a particular police that is being trained for this. Roads are going to be closed. There's going to be a lot of inconveniences. Already Munyonyo, Bunga, that whole area of Buziga has cross paths. So business is at a standstill. Help us understand the cost-benefit analysis, piggybacking on both CHOGM and the AU summits, 2007 and 2010.
Well, the English have a saying that in order for you to get a good omelette, you must break an egg.
That's a good one.
So there are lots of infrastructure developments going on. Yes, they may come with inconveniences. You see, like people have been complaining about potholes in Kampala. Now, a number of roads are being fixed. That can cause traffic jam, but eventually you will get better roads afterwards. Those of us who travel out of the country, the airport has been undergoing renovation and rehabilitation. You may get inconvenienced, but thereafter you get a better airport. So similarly, if the roads towards Munyonyo are being worked on, there may be those temporary inconveniences, but I think the broader issue is that after that, you will get better infrastructure. So we call upon our people to be patient with some of these changes, because how will you renovate the road without actually physically working on it and causing inconveniences? You know, a road is physical. It's not digital the way some of us deal with digital issues. If you have to fix a road, you have to work on it. And when you deploy machinery on it, it may cause inconveniences. But I'm sure everybody appreciates that this is for the good of all of us. At the end of the day, we shall have better facilities and better services.
Let me jump to Andrew before I get to Honorable Mara. Andrew, when the non-allied movement really basically came in place, Cold War, pro-Soviet, pro-America there, 1961, is it still relevant to have this summit? Or it's just a place where people come and speak good English, have good terms, and really...
Well, first, I'm going to answer your question in a roundabout manner because I feel like to understand why it's important for Uganda to host these two conferences, we first need to understand what are the major pillars of Uganda's foreign policy. If you read President Yoweri Museveni's speeches, because I think he's the chief ideologue of what our foreign policy is, you'll see that Uganda's foreign policy rests on 3 pillars. The first pillar is Pan-Africanism. And that pillar has 2 sub-pillars. Under Pan-Africanism, there is something he always articulates of regional integration, that our economies are too small and unviable for them to attract sufficient investment and create prosperity. So we need regional integration. And that those regional integration, whether it's ECOWAS, the East African Community, SADC, can combine to create an African customs union. That is one. The second, he talks about his strategic security, that these countries are so vulnerable because they are small and economically small. Economically small, in population they're also small. For them to be secure in the global environment and its competitive structures, we need to create something akin to an African high command to ensure that we bring our military resources and diplomatic resources together so that we can punch better. So that is the first pillar of Uganda's foreign policy, Pan-Africanism. The second is non-alignment. Non-alignment means that in the competition between the big powers, Uganda should not seek to take sides. You can clearly see a country like Ukraine took sides in a conflict or in a competition between the United States and Russia for hegemony, and you can see how it is being destroyed. So when 2 elephants are fighting, don't try to be the grass because you're the one that will suffer, and that is the cost that Ukraine has paid. So in that sense, non-alignment is still very important because it allows Uganda to avoid getting entangled in battles that are not of its own making or its interest, and trying to engage other actors on the world scene with, by benefiting from all sides. So if America and China are in rivalry, Uganda will sustain good diplomatic relations between the United States and China, United States and her allies, who would include Japan, South Korea, and all the European countries. And of course, China has its own allies. The same applies to Russia or any other global competition. It's so important that if a small country don't want to be crushed in this competition, so stand aside and try to cooperate with all. So it's very important for Uganda to sustain the non-aligned stance. Also, it's important for the non-aligned movement to continue as an association of those countries that don't want to be entangled in global conflicts among the big powers. The fourth pillar of Uganda's foreign policy is world peace. And actually the 3 are related in the sense that in pursuit of world peace is to say, if Uganda is to perform the role of promoting world peace, because Uganda can only become economically prosperous if there is a peaceful global community through which we can promote our own economic intercourse with all the countries of the world. So if you're going to pursue world peace, you must be involved in engaging so many other players in order to promote the cause of peace. And when you are non-aligned and 2 people are quarreling, then you have the legitimacy to be a bridge between them. I do not know whether you know that actually President Yoweri Museveni was earlier this year invited among a few African leaders, I think there were 4 or 5, yeah. But he couldn't go ahead. COVID sent Dr. Hakana Rugunda, to go to Kyiv and meet the government there, and go to Moscow and meet the government there, and try to act as a bridge between the 2. I'm sure Uganda was selected because it is a non-aligned country where both sides of the conflict can see it as a neutral arbiter in their conflict. So to that degree, so that is broadly the 3 pillars of Uganda's foreign policy. Pan-Africanism, which has regional integration and strategic security. Then you have non-alignment, avoid getting entangled in these conflicts. The third is world peace. You can then leverage those 2 positions to become a promoter of world peace. So now you asked me to say, is non-aligned conferences, rather non-aligned movement still viable and necessary? Yes, it is, because in fact it is much more necessary now. Remember that it became necessary in the late 50s and early 60s when the following leaders actually met in Badang. I don't know how you pronounce it. Badang is a city in Indonesia. There was Jawahar Nehru of India. There was Marshal Tito of Yugoslavia, Joseph Tito of Yugoslavia. There was Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt, and then there was Sukarno of Indonesia. Those are the 5 founding fathers of the non-aligned conference. And that is what they articulated. Let us not be dragged into the conflict between the Soviet Union and her allies and the United States and her allies. Now, in 1991, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, we moved from a bipolar world. You know, the global architecture of power was a rivalry between the East and the West. So when the Soviet Union collapsed, the Warsaw Pact was closed. What we moved was from bipolarity, a bipolar world, into unipolarity, a unipolar world where America dominated the globe. I could say during that time, the non-aligned movement was significantly weakened because big power rivalries had significantly diminished due to the presence of only one global power. But you can see since, let's say, 2010 up to 2017, 2 major powers have emerged. One is China, whose economic size in terms of purchasing power parity has overtaken that of the United States by more than 20%. And because of its economic size and economic weight, and given its large population, it's investing heavily in its own military infrastructure. America is worried about the rise of China, that if China will seek to establish hegemony in Asia. And Asia is the largest trading nation, region of the world. The greatest wealth of the world is no longer in Europe or in North America, it's in Asia. So if China, America is afraid that if China develops such great competencies and dominates Asia, it can lock America out of the Asian market, in which case that can lead to economic decline in America and perhaps political conflict, internal political conflict for America. So there is a rivalry. The third country that is emerging as a global power is the revival of Russia under Putin. So now we are in a world of 3 major powers: the United States, China, and Russia. Of course, Russia is the weakest of the 3, actually a distant third. But we have moved from bipolarity to unipolarity. Now we are into multipolarity. We are living in a multipolar world. So competition between the big powers is beginning to gain momentum. Now remember, India is behind, is coming. In a few 10, 15, 20 years, India will become a major power. And there will be conflicts between it and China. There will be conflicts between India and the United States. Once America has used India to contain China, it will have to contend with India, assuming the American strategy on China wins. So again, non-aligned movement is very important in that context, that the countries of the global south need to be very careful and say, look, you guys are fighting. We don't want to be victims of your fight. We want to be independent, apart, or neutral in your conflicts. We can trade with all sides, because America has has been building systems of alliances in Asia. America has started establishing military bases in the Philippines. It has signed, America, Britain, and India, and Japan have signed an agreement called the Quad to contain China, a kind of military cooperation. America is increasing her security in South Korea. America is challenging China's claims to the South China Sea and the East China Sea. So these conflicts have emerged, and you know, America has even imposed a blockade on microchips being sold to China, and China is building her own microchips because America is afraid that high technology going to China will give China a decisive advantage. You know, China now has the largest navy in the world. America used to be the biggest navy in the world, but China has more ships than America now. So we are seeing big power rivalry coming. The war in Ukraine is one of them. So Uganda being elected to 2 positions to head non-aligned movement, and the G77, I think, we have taken this role at a very important moment. I'm sure it is a big credit to President Yoweri Museveni that other leaders of the global south see that at this very critical moment, he's the right person to lead this kind of movement, that, look, let us organize ourselves to avoid being entangled in these conflicts, because we're entering a very dangerous world. The best scenario in the world is to have one hegemon. The second best scenario is to have maybe 2, bipolarity. multipolarity is always at a risk for war. Before the First World War, you had how many major powers? You had Britain, you had France, you had the United States, you had Russia, you had Germany. There were 5. You could even add Austria. That caused the First World War. The Second World War, you had Britain, France, the United States, the Soviet Union, and Germany. Nazi Germany had come up. 5 powers, it led to war. Now we have 3, we are likely to be joined by 4th, India, and the global tensions you can see are emerging. There is a war in Europe as we are speaking. So I think this is a very big challenge for President Yoweri Museveni as a chair of both of these to ensure that he can, the global south can become an important voice, even a restraint, perhaps using its moral weight, because we don't have the military muscle, its moral weight to convince the big boys, the big bullies, please calm down, behave yourselves. Yes.
And I like you said the moral weight, but I wanted to add to what you've just said. You and I were here, we discussed BRICS, we discussed how influential it is. There's a summit there, there's the China-African summit, the Russia-African summit, the America-African summit. Is this still relevant, Andrew?
There is even a Saudi Arabia-Africa summit.
Yes.
So if all those are there,
Yes, in Japan.
Is this still relevant?
Yes.
Yes, in fact, it feeds into them.
To what
because
end?
I should tell you, like right now, if there is any global matter, like let me say the G7 meeting, you are likely to see President Museveni invited there because he's representing a large bloc of countries in the non-aligned movement and the G77. If there is the G20 summit, you are likely to see President Yoweri Museveni there because he's representing a very important bloc of countries. If Uganda will be invited, and Adonia is going to be a very busy man in the next 1 year, in the next 2-3 years. If there is a major conflict in the world, you will see President Museveni being involved because he's chair of a large association of countries. And remember that since 1960, many of these countries have become very rich. Indonesia, I think in purchasing power parity, is about the 6th or 7th largest economy in the world.
It's a member of G20.
You have Brazil.
He's a member of G20.
He's a member of the G20. You have Brazil. It has become very powerful. South Africa is a member. These are major economies, Nigeria, Egypt. So this is not a very small bloc. In fact, if these countries of the south of NAM united and imposed a trade blockade on the developed countries could suffer because right now most of the manufacturing depends on, if you go to America, China really is the biggest supplier of the industrial products. Then Vietnam and other countries have emerged as the biggest producers of a lot of what the Western world consumes. The Western economies have moved much more into service economies and away from manufacturing. So if you talk of raw materials, you talk of manufacturing, really the global south is a very powerful player. And I think our voice, depending, you see, this will require a lot of skill and a lot of time from President Yoweri Museveni to ensure that he uses the weight of these associations, or the G7, the G77, the group of 77, also South-South cooperation and NAM, to use them to give them greater weight in international affairs and international fora. Because that also depends on how he perceives these issues. And I have all confidence that the man I know, Museveni, is a much more thoughtful person. He is very strategic in his outlook, and he has a broad global view of issues. So he's able to analyze and integrate these things. Just imagine Bobi Wine was the president of Uganda, as head of NAM. I don't know what kind of leadership he would offer, because with all due respect, I don't think that he's intellectually competent to handle issues of this kind of global weight.
I'll leave that one to that. Mr. Ambassador, you had a comment before I get to Honorable Mara.
I think Andrew is really very, very correct that this responsibility really for Uganda is big. The G77 and NAM combined represent 82% of the world population. I'll give you an example. Nothing happens at the UN without the concurrence of the G77 countries. There are 134 plus China. We have COP28 coming in Dubai, end of November. Without G77, there will not be a deal on climate change. So that shows you the importance of Uganda's chair of G77. To skillfully manage this, we are going to be a global player. And Andrew is absolutely right. But this needs to be skillfully managed, and President Museveni is really capable intellectual of doing that, and with the competent officials to really manage this. And also another advantage with Uganda is that we don't have a dog in this fight. We, you know, other countries, I don't want to name countries that have chaired G77 and NAM, have had issues. They have tried to use these organizations for their national interests. We are really truly neutral, but neutrality is positive. It doesn't mean that you don't work with the US. You know, you can trade with the US and trade with China. It's not like the Cold War where the lines were drawn. Now, you have to do what we are calling, what academicians now are calling strategic non-alignment. You can work with both blocs for your benefit. You can also pursue your national interest. But these policies of NAM and G77 are the guiding principles.
Thank you very much. Honorable Mara, let me come to you. Looking at especially the global challenges, climate change, poverty, hunger, prices, debt, all these are the global challenges. But we also look at the pillars of NAM: non-aggression, respect, no interference, equal and beneficial, peaceful coexistence. How does Uganda leverage from these summits?
Thank you very much, Timothy. Also, before I answer that question, I'm really very pleased to share this platform with my OB, Adonia, when we were at Makerere together. And when he went to the world of diplomacy, I moved towards banking, and so.
To make money.
Welcome.
Now UBC has brought you together.
UBC has brought us together. Let me start by saying this, and I want to recap on what Andra said, that the foundation of NAM was basically to stay away from the hegemony of the bipolar world, where there was a contestation between the capitalist world led by the US into that NATO alliance, while on the other side you had the socialist orientation led by Russia and the former Soviet Union, rather, and they created the Warsaw Pact, which has, by the way, today has collapsed. So the NAM objectives and intention was not to be swallowed by any of these two forces, and to say we don't want to go into any bloc or any strategic alliance. For us, we want to be with everybody. And there were quite a number of objectives which they had laid, the founding members had laid forward. But if you look at today, the relevance of NAM, one of the things that NAM believes in is that the world system has kind of created unfair structure that jeopardizes the sovereignty of states. I will come into the issues of debt, which you've referred to. So if you look at the world system, because the NAM countries of the 1950s and 1960s were actually third world countries by nature, really. If you look at Indonesia, India, at the time Egypt, they were not as developed as today. Because if you look at the GDP of China by then, or India, or Indonesia, or Egypt, or Uganda, we were at the same level with Singapore. Very poor countries. And so one of the things that had preoccupied them was the element of how can we enhance economic development as countries, how can we move forward. So these countries today are now big giants. Some of them are big giants. If you look at India, by the way, India has overtaken Russia in terms of GDP. They're about $3.1 trillion. Russia is about 2.2. And China is now 17.9 trillion. America is at 26 trillion. You can see China is very close to America in terms of the size of GDP. So today, the relevance of NAM, they are now questioning and say the global architecture has been created unfairly, which is actually undermining the sovereignty of other states. For example, if you pick the element of the international trade, there is unfairness in terms of the way the global trade is structured. It favors the West against the global south. And I think NAM is coming together to say, no, let us look at those conventions, let's look at the agreements, so that we have articles that make us trade fairly without some people taking full advantage of us. And then coming together as NAM, I think they are able to make great advocacy. One of also the elements that they're looking at is the restructuring of United Nations. Look at the Security Council, created by a few people, and they want the rest of the world not to say anything. They sit about 7 of them, and they make a decision. So NAM is an organization that is coming together to question and say, let us restructure United Nations in such a way that it's more democratic and benefits the rest of the world. Ambassador has talked about the South-to-South cooperation, and that brings in the relevance of NAM now to Uganda. One of the things that NAM is doing is that they have created a number of committees which look specifically to matters like sustainable development, the Millennium Development Goals. They're looking at sharing of technologies between countries, getting specialists, and they said, what kind of technology transfer can we do, can we move to some of these countries within the NAM membership? Look at, for example, China. China is now the leading country when it comes to robotics, manufacturing of cars, manufacturing, industrial setup. You pick any, you'll actually find that India and China are basically upfront with technologies. And for us in the business world and as a country, we stand to benefit from that conversation where there is a transfer of technology to a country like Uganda. So in the area of economic field, there's a lot of conversation. And also, when you deal with unfair trade and you remove all those bottlenecks, then Uganda is going to trade fairly. And the only benefit can come to us if we stand together. Because like Andrew has said, one of the foreign policy agenda of President Yoweri Museveni is that it's about integration. How can we stand together? Because the stronger we are, not only about bigger markets, but if we come together as a regional bloc, we are more able to negotiate better terms than if you walk alone. Of course, the NAM is actually promoting integration, south-to-south trade between ourselves. Other than looking at the north, we can actually trade between the south and promote that trade. And in a sense, it will give a lot more economic dividends to Uganda. Adonia has talked about the number of visitors coming here. I've looked at the program. Every head of state will be coming with a lot of delegation. First of all, I don't know how much food will be eaten here. We'll be having additional people, and you have to feed the members very well. They must have their breakfast, their lunch, their dinners, their teas. So Ugandans must be ready to supply all manners of food to these hotels. I think those who are in the poultry industry should prepare and make sure food is available. Our matoke, our sweet potatoes. President Museveni has said that the world has been very unfair to itself, especially the global West, because of the restrictions of trade that we talk about. Uganda has the best pineapples. I think when they eat our pineapples and they go back home, they will not even touch theirs. So the Luero people should be ready with our trucks to make sure that the hotels where our visitors are going to stay have enough pineapples from Uganda and let them enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to that moment when it is not going to only be about tourism. The Ugandan hospitality will be one thing that the visitors will experience. I hope that they will have the opportunity to go to our parks at their own free time. And from there, I think Uganda will become, if we do it very well and we do it successfully, will become a global tourist destination. and they will have more conversation and take a good name back home to say Uganda is a country that you really need to visit. So we are going to look at it from all angles, make sure that we take full economic benefit from it.
If there are 1 or 2, 3 things that we should be talking about, you've talked about the pineapples there. 1, 2, 3 things, economically, politically, on the diplomatic scene, that Uganda can zero in and say these 3 things are what we're going to front. What would they be?
I think one thing that we are always up to is to ensure that we attract foreign direct investments into the country and business-to-business conversation. I would want to appeal, the minister is here. I think even as the global leaders are coming, I think we also need to prepare our business leaders to be around to have a conversation with the visitors who are coming. I don't think those heads of state will come alone. They will also come with a set of business people. I think one is investment into this country is going to be a very powerful thing. Second, we need to promote tourism. This is an opportunity for us at least to have on those shelves some, shows, some demonstration about the Ugandan tourism sector. I think we need to do it and do it successfully. And wherever we have gone, whether it's South Africa or Dubai, I'm told our toll has always been the best in terms of the assessment. We do it very, very well. I think let's do it in Munyonyo to attract the tourist. And 3, let them enjoy Uganda hospitality in the widest breadth possible.
Honorable, let me come to you. Honorable Mara has spoken about pineapples and all these things, tourism, how we can position ourselves. But also when you look at what we're calling ourselves position, what areas would we be positioning? There's business that he's talking about. What documentation do we need to have in place for these working committees to be able to have this discussion and see that we leverage and benefit from this?
Thank you very much. And it's a real gender bias to be the only woman. And you talk last after 4 very elegant men. But I appreciate that. I appreciate all the dynamics that they were bringing in.
The talks last.
The diplomacy aspect, the political, and all that. Mine, I would really want to start from the lowest context. Are our people aware? Are these pineapple people of Luera aware? Are my community in Molatara actually aware that we are going to host over 3,000 people in Kampala? As a country, have we really prepared them? Before we even start asking questions about documents and all that. Because for me, and I would really want to appreciate the role that Uganda has played in the global space, which has brought to us this great opportunity. And no doubt about it. Economically, we are going to have a lot of trickle-down effect. But for our people to appreciate and for the country to actually benefit in the economic aspect and also at the community level, we need to do a lot. And I'm glad that our Minister of Information and National Guidance is here. That this is November, and these guests are coming in January. I must tell you that even in Parliament, personally, I'd read some scanty information, but I got to know during our budgeting process in May, when there was, I think it was a supplementary budget to construct the convention center. And members of Parliament said, no, we are not going to give this one person money. And yet, you know, we don't see the trickle-down effect. So, and I'm bringing that as national leaders, the aspect of participation of the general population, the awareness, there is no doubt about our role, about the economic benefits, the diplomacy, the political, which my colleagues have ably stated that. And so I think we've got a lot of work to do. And I think Andrew talked about it. Our president is a visionary leader. And if we are not careful as a country, we are 100 years behind him He has gone far ahead of us. And so we need to catch up with the pace, mobilize our people, and see how they actually benefit directly from this. Now, in the context of programming and what to really focus on in this area, I think it comes along with identifying what do we want to achieve. In the global space, in the diplomacy, we are all set programs, visitors are coming, hotels. I can see KCCA really trying with roads and all that. And in that context, of course, the benefits is a lot. If you see on the roads, you see our people working. Those are jobs being created as a result of infrastructure development in the hospitality sector, the jobs in the hotels and all that kind of aspect. But I think we are falling short on how best we can then leverage as a country in terms of the trickle-down effect. Because it is assumed that the eggs is there. Is there somebody really helping to understand that? Do we even have enough eggs to feed these people? Remember, it's one of the biggest conference that we are going to. And I took from that point of working through the community up to the level of policy making. And my colleague, Omar, and myself, we sit in the budget committee. And I don't remember in this financial year's budget, if there was really any specific budget realignment, reallocation to specifically look at this as an emerging issue. In budgeting, there are those items, we call them emerging issues. Do we actually have that budget? Right now, we're actually talking about a new budget. Now, I'm taking you in that context of preparation. From the other level of policy, diplomacy, politically, we are already well positioned there. But how do we leverage that opportunity? And so I see this as something that we can still do within the period of time that we have. We have leaders who can understand all these other aspects of things. But in my view, it's really an opportunity that we've been paying money, for example, to go and tell the world about Uganda. I know in our budget of tourism, we have all those promotion, budgets and all those kind of things. Now, here is an opportunity in front of us. And so I think, I know there are a lot of teams and a lot of work being done around this aspect, but I think we need to do a little bit more for my ordinary person in a Molata who is having the local eggs, which is having a yellow yolk or something like that. Maybe those could be one of the things to actually showcase out there. So I would really implore that our thinking and our preparation considers those aspects of how the general population would really leverage on this. I was around when Chogam was there, when it was done. And we wouldn't now be making roads if we actually prepared for both short-term, mid-term, and long-term. We wouldn't be doing roads now. We would have done, I remember we planted the most beautiful flowers along Rentebe Road and all that kind of aspect. So that calls in for really better preparation, because I know after this, it will going to launch the country into more opportunities, actually, to come. And so I think for us to support, I know my president is so much passionate about poverty eradication and those economic kind of strategy, leveraging on this global geopolitics in the global space. And so I pray and hope that we use this opportunity to shoot the bird with one stone with two how do they call it?
Shooting two birds with one stone.
Two birds with one stone. And actually, we now even have two stones because we are going to have two conferences at the same time, so that we achieve in the other global aspects and the geopolitics and all that, but we also achieve in our economic development agenda.
Before I get to Ambassador, something you've said about preparation, and I know in your work back in Amolata, you were referred to as Mama Rice. What I wanted to ask, how does this team that is here, because for them, they might be at the macro. The micro is the important one that will supply the eggs, the pineapple. One or two things that they can do in preparation.
One of the critical things
instead of importing the eggs.
That as leaders is that we need to build a system, like for example, a market infrastructure that goes down to the local population and gets what the market actually requires. And I go back again to the budget. If you look at our Ministry of Trade, in fact, the busiest ministry now should be Trade, in organizing the markets and identifying some of these things. And some of these, somebody said how many eggs will they eat, and you know, the breakfast, the lunch, and all. Where are the matokes? How are we going to, you know, the logistical kind of infrastructure and that market infrastructure. And that is what needs to be done now. Now, the other aspect is the role of private sector. I think Honorable Paul tried to bring that out, that apart from the hotel owners in Kampala, our private sector fraternity across the country are actually aware of this. And how do they plan to actually be involved to leverage in that context? So the markets, our market system, remember we're in a liberal economy, and anybody sells their goods and services, you know, in a way that, you know, you make your money and you make your profit and all that kind of. So that organization of how we are going to take care of these guests. I organized a very small, one time I was a chair of a very small expo we organized in Rwenzori sub-region, and we were calling it Rwenzori Expo, yeah, Business Expo. And we hosted about 20,000 people. And I think we had about delegation from about 20 countries. And we had over 10,000 exhibitors of local traders in Fort Photo with all the kinds of things that they're doing. And I remember how hectic it was first to mobilize those people, even how to feed them and all this kind of thing. So I from that small experience, I really do understand that, like you rightly said, we are going to achieve very well in terms of the conference, the meetings, like you say, the good papers, and which our excellency here really, you know, the agreements, they call them agreements, the negotiations, that no doubt about it. But the nitty-gritties and how our people are going to benefit, for me, that is a question that needs to be unpacked.
Thank you. Honorable Mara, you have a comment before I get to the ambassador.
Yes. I think you're asking, your questions is at macro and then micro level. Now, at macro level, there will be a lot of conversations about state-to-state conversations. Yeah. Maybe what is happening in Somalia, the stability of the region, et cetera, because NAM is about world peace. Yeah. That conversation will happen. Now, the second one you're saying is at macro, how would somebody from Amolata, a fishmonger, understand and benefit from NAM? I would want to suggest to us that we need to organize the business community, because if we are talking about south-to-south trade, intra-African trade, inter-NAM trade, then we need to demonstrate that we have some tangible, tradable commodities that are available that we can trade with our partners within the region and across, maybe with China, with India, and so forth. Now, how do we demonstrate that? I've talked about having a trade show, kind of stalls where we have where we have those commodities well packaged, you know, so that the visitors, as they walk, they can see. Said, we are Amolata fishmongers. We can actually supply a pork. How do you call it? Tilapia. Tilapia
Yes,
to you.
And a very tasty one.
A very tasty
than
one.
Even the one of Lake Victoria.
Exactly, of a certain quantity. We must also be able to determine the quantity of supply. Sometimes we come and the thing is very nice, but then they said, we want 10 tons. They said, we don't have. So it needs organization, among ourselves, the leaders, we as the leaders, we need to communicate and work with the business community to make sure that, especially the economic side, the economic benefit to the country really happens, especially business-to-business activities. Thank you, Timothy. Yeah.
Honorable Ambassador, one of the things that she said is preparation. How prepared are we both at the macro and the micro levels, especially for the business community, but also we'll get to the state level there. How prepared are we to show off what Uganda is endowed with?
Thank you.
Maybe as the answers, just to inform you that the cabinet appointed the head of public service, Madame Nachove, as the CEO for this organizing team, and the ambassador here is the deputy CEO.
Okay.
So
That's a good one.
So he speaks from that capacity, as somebody who is at the top of the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I have two hats, sir.
Yes.
Now the hats of the deputy CEO is what to address the micro.
Yes, the micro question.
We were really very, very careful in preparing these events.
Yeah.
These are intergovernmental gatherings. They're for governments by their nature. But we are lucky to have a very, very, big and beautiful venue, Munyonyo Speak Resort. So what a decision has been taken that selected Ugandan exhibitors will have stores there.
Yes.
When visitors come, they want to buy something, Ugandan. And because of the nature of the work, I've attended, this is like the 5th NAM summit I've attended. People have no time to come to the city.
No.
Few will come, but others will stay in Munyonyo. So if there are stores there selling Ugandan products, I can guarantee you they will sell out.
Yes.
People will buy a lot. So we have catered for that. Then the minister mentioned about the business forum. That's very important, and it's led by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, but working with the Minister of Trade.
Yes.
To make sure that chambers of commerce from the global south, like Paul said, the global south, you can talk about like UAE, for example, Chamber of Commerce, India and others. So carefully selected will come and partner up, and the business forum has been organized to be an East African one.
Okay.
Not a Ugandan affair.
Okay.
So that where because this is happening in East Africa, where East African countries, represented maybe by the Investment Authority or chambers of, will come and present what they have to offer, including Uganda, and interact with those chambers of commerce from NAM and G77 member states, so that deals are done. And that will come before the summit. And some heads of states from the region and outside the region will attend that. And I think there we can really trickle down. Real deals can be done, rather than having the macro, where we will go. We are going to be negotiating documents up to midnight. The NAM document, I can give you a preview, is 3,000 pages. You see? All the problems of the global south, political, economic, social, are in that document. We will spend that one we will do, but also the trickle down, the macro level must be addressed. And I think Madam Nachove has been really very careful and me to make sure that that is included, and space in Munyonyo is available, and the selection of those stores that will exhibit Ugandan products will be worked on.
Yeah.
So we have taken care of that.
Thank you very much. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back from this break, we'll be digging deeper into this, the relevance of NAM and also the G77, and go further to when we take the leadership for 3 years and 1 year there. What does that mean, and what will be preceding all this and the impact to the country, short term and long term, after this break.
Jovia ng'oyolekera ku lugendo luno olw'obulamu, nkuwa ekirabo eky'amaanyi agatazizibwa, amaanyi okulabibwa n'okuwulirwa mu mawanga ag'ewala ennyo, okutuuka buli wamu nga yadde togenzeeyo, ensi yonna ng'ekuli mu ngalo. Okutambula mu biseera n'okumanya buli kimu ekirina okumanyibwa. Jovia kino kye kirabo kyange gy'oli.
Tewali kumoko ky'osobola okukola ku mukutu nnandameggwa ogwa MTN.
Metu Bus Industries Namambe, the manufacturers of buses for transporters, schools, tour operators and special purpose vans. Metu Bus Industries offers a range of buses known for safety, comfort and reliability. Depending on your needs, a bus can simply be a point A to point B people mover with just seats or a special design that includes a restroom, power outlet, Wi-Fi, television and a refreshment center. Buy your buses from Metu and support industrialization of Uganda.
Era tutukanga tukoba omuntu nti nigasita ndala mukaaga itaano sita isatu ash onige yes
nga bakubuuza amachanti
nga bamubuuza amachanti code nga tumukoba atamu nsanvu olumalirizawo nga atamu esente dali kuwayo kumbaga ya mwenemu saawa yeneyo nga kyabazinga amwebaza nga tweyongere kai tujja mu kyalo ekindi
ekikoba embaga olunawa luti nga mwira
tulija kumala kai tweyongere emyezi mukaaga nga tukasomesa abantu momope
baba embaga ya mwenemu eriyo nga 18 kai emyezi omukaaga gyoli kwongeramu ojaji
oyidine bya momope abantu yembite yona bandeta momo ono ne bibali kumpaka ne bya momo pabidi kyama kupichipiti ojo bisomesa
muleke musoniwe kyamaja
baba tuka bulungi
simbulembalasi asumulude
momo nyabo.
Pay or shop with MTN Momo and get cash back every week. It's free of charge. Use the Momo app or dial *165*3#.
Welcome back from that quick commercial break here on Behind the Headlines. My name is Timothy Nyangweso. I have a distinguished panel here that we're discussing two summits that will be happening in the country. The non-aligned movement, the 19th, will be happening in Uganda, but also the third G77 plus China will also be happening here between the 15th and the 23rd of January 2024. The preparations are already underway, but the question is, how do we leverage on it? How do we benefit from it? Does it have a trickle-down effect? Have we also discussed the cost-benefit analysis? All those are there for us to discuss. We'll be getting into some of your messages in a short while. But let me get to the Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, most of the summits we have had, 2 to be exact, have been smeared by scandals, either corruption, cars, this other thing. What lessons have you picked from the other summits that you're employing here? But also my second question to you, the Honorable spoke about roads, the convention, the money invested in this, and I expect the next financial year we're still going to invest in this or get supplementary budgets. What's the cost-benefit analysis?
Yes, like we have said, first of all, this is a very important conference, or conferences, because they are like 2 in 1, the G77 and China, and then the NAM. And there are very many benefits associated with this. We may look at the money we are investing in, but at the end of the day, the opportunities which will arise out of these conferences far outweigh the money we are going to invest into some of these areas which we are working on. First of all, most of the expenditures we are incurring on this are on improvement of infrastructure. Say, we have worked on the airport and expanded it. We are working on the roads. These are facilities which will remain here for us even after the conference. But most importantly, like we have said, this is an opportunity where we are going to get many countries. And by the way, we have got many confirmations from presidents and the high-profile dignitaries who will descend on Kampala. And the trade deals which we shall negotiate, the bilateral engagements which we shall be engaging in. You have heard time and again the president talk about markets, looking for markets. Like the old man was saying, when you look at our policy outlook, we are saying it's not, Ugandan market is not enough our products. And the production is increasing and improving in Uganda. We are now producing excess milk, for instance. We have excess poultry products. We have a lot of tea, a lot of coffee, and so forth. So we are looking for markets. And this is an opportunity where through these engagements, we are going to get the markets in Asia, Arab world, South, and so forth. So the benefits far much outweigh what we are investing in terms of the resources. So even if we put in billions, by the end of the day, we shall reap much more. And also, answering to what my sister was raising, it is not enough that this conference becomes for the white-collar people, us who are in neckties. We are carefully and deliberately making arrangements to ensure that even the common person becomes part and parcel and benefits from this. And the cabinet, we've been discussing the organization, and every 2 weeks the Minister of Foreign Affairs gives us an update. And like I said, through an intervention, we put in place a team, overall coordinated by Prime Minister, but the hands-on team is chaired by the Secretary of Cabinet, Head of Public Service, and deputized by our ambassador here. I think you have partly relocated from New York to Kampala here, but also coordinating a lot of things. So a lot of work has been going on. Like there is a process of accrediting the hotels where all these people will be accommodated. You see, you look at the country being a president, but there are very many people who come with the president. Like we have said, there is also the Business Trade Summit, which will precede this conference from 15th to 19th. And the Private Sector Foundation of Uganda is taking the lead in coordinating the private sector. So many business entities will come from all over the world to discuss businesses. So in terms of cost-benefit analysis, even without going into academic calculations, you can say the benefits will be much bigger than the costs we are putting in. So the local person will definitely benefit because these huge numbers of people will have to eat. Where will the food come from? So the tilapia from Amartar eventually will find its way.
Yes.
The matoke, the yellow bananas from all over.
Yes.
And Uganda is actually known for very good food. I have traveled to many countries.
Yes.
Uganda ranks among the best in many ways. So we are definitely prepared to benefit from all of this. Just yesterday, the team did the launch to the public. And we are going to intensify the communication and mobilizing Ugandans, the global community, but also most importantly, Ugandans. For people from Kanungu, from Moratar, from Otuke,
yes,
to know and appreciate that they are part of this. It's not meant for us, ministers and MPs alone, high-profile people, but every Uganda eventually will have to appreciate that you benefit from this. So the communication between now and January and even thereafter is going to be intensified so that everybody appreciates and becomes part and parcel of this. Our message and appeal is that let's keep the Ugandan spirit of receiving visitors when they come. That is why government deliberately is cleaning up the place. You know, our tradition is that when a visitor is coming, you sweep
around the
road,
house,
around, you plant flowers so that he finds a home very welcoming. That's why we are repairing the roads. Not that when they are not coming, we cannot repair the roads, but deliberately we are working on the infrastructure, beautifying the area so that we present a very positive image and picture of the country.
Scandals.
Scandals, yes. We learn from mistakes and we draw lessons from what happened in the past and then try to improve. Yes, Chogam was tainted with those accusations, although I think people who were accused were cleared by court, if I recall very well. And we have designed the arrangements so carefully that we should not have and we don't expect any scandals associated. For instance, like I told you, Cabinet put in place a team chaired and led by these public servants, technical people, not us politicians. Although we do overall supervision, but we are not involved, for instance, in touching resources and so forth. And of course, we, like I've said, we draw lessons from the past happenings to make sure that everything is in order. So I am certain there will be accountability, there will be transparency. Every coin which is released by government should be used, but also I use this as a warning to all those who are involved that they should not dip their hands into the resources irregularly and fraudulently. Definitely the law will catch up with them, but we expect everything to move smoothly.
Thank you. Comment from Ambassador, then I'll come to Andrew.
Yeah, thank you. To really comment about what the minister has said, to really compliment and talking about scandals and the past summits. I think the difference between the past summit and this one is that this has been a disciplined operation. So far you have not had. And under the leadership of
the thieves have been chased away.
Madam Rusi Nachove, we really tried to, there is nothing like a NAM budget. It is the MDS, the government departments, using their normal budget. The money that has been approved is to really do things. One of the major investments which is really going to benefit the country is the convention center. And it's a joint venture with government. If money didn't go to an individual, that's one. That's managed by UDC as a government entity. Us have nothing to do with it. We have avoided things like buying cars.
That one.
Because government has enough cars. We were clear on that. No purchase of cars. We will, sorry, we will take your car, we will take.
Oh, that's a good one.
But that has really saved a lot of funds. And you know, money is going to go to accommodating the visitors. You know, and it's limited, very, very frugal courtesies, maybe 1+3. You know, the head of delegation +2.
+2.
So we have really looked at it very carefully. And the relevant government ministries and departments are responsible for their money through their budgeting. You know, and also, we have worked hard to get friendly countries to really support us. For example, China has given us, they had given us over 60 vehicles last time for the summit, which had postponed. Now they have given us 70. They are already here.
Wow.
New cars. Other countries I'm not going to name have offered, for example, to do accreditation. That's saving government billions of shillings. So we have,
another country
we have really
10
been,
buses.
we have India given us 10 buses, France. So we have gone out to really make sure that we really subsidize government, the taxpayer of this country. And I think at the end of the conference, we'll all be proud that government did not spend much, and there was no scandals. And we try hard. It's not easy, but we try hard. And I can assure you on behalf of my boss, Madam Rusi Nachove, that this is going to really be a very disciplined operation. And at the end of the day, we will all be happy.
Wow.
Thank you very much, and that was very insightful. Let me come to you, Andrew. Limited political influence, limited GDP. These countries in the global south seem to be emerging to try and make trends in how the global economies go. Is this possible?
Well, first of all, I want to address some of the issues my colleagues had earlier raised. I had taken some notes. I have some criticism of Uganda. I actually think that it may be quite late for Uganda to reap the full benefits of these two very important and significant conferences. Why? If you read the book by Lee Kuan Yew, from third world to first, the Singapore story, that is actually also his autobiography. He says that when they were going to host the Commonwealth Conference, CHOGM, in 1971, so they had been preparing, I think it's announced about 5 years before you host it. So they planted palm trees from the airport to the city. They did so many things. And so that if the aim was that if visitors are coming into the country, there is a particular first impression that should be created in their minds about that country. At that time, Singapore was still a very poor country, not at the level, as Omar thinks, of the level of Uganda. East Asian countries were much more advanced than ours, and it was a city-state, but it was still a poor country nonetheless. So they created a first impression. What is my criticism of government of Uganda? If you move around Kampala, I think even if you love Museveni more than you love Jesus Christ and Muhammad, you'd really say this city has been neglected for so long, and there is so little you can do to improve its appearance. And this I have personally discussed with the president and so many people in the government. If you drive from the airport and you begin getting off the Entebbe Expressway and enter the northern bypass, you begin seeing the problem of Uganda. The city begins looking like a continuous garbage dump. But when you get off the northern bypass, whether, especially the guests will likely, who are not going to Munyonyo, because Munyonyo cannot host all the guests there, those who will enter from Kawempe or from Karelwe or wherever it is, they will have to go through so much garbage and dirt. Now, that the first impression you create of people is quite, people lose faith. And I think we should take these conferences to say investment in the city, the beautification of the city, and the perception it creates in the mind of a visitor is so important. Even an investor. I've seen many investors come here and be discouraged. They think the country is in chaos and falling apart, simply because of what they have seen. And some of them said, I don't want to come back here. So it is too late to solve these problems, but I think the lesson we can draw from it is that we need, and I'm sorry to say this, you just need to go to Kigali and see that city. And what they have done and say, we need to do it here. And Museveni can easily do it. Why? Because he has low political cost. Kampala doesn't vote for him. Bobby Wine in the last election got 384,000 votes, Museveni got 127. So Museveni got something like 22%. In other words, he can try, he can do anything because he doesn't expect any political return. He can always get his votes elsewhere. But he can say, my legacy is to leave a serious city. And therefore, his hand is free. If you are Bobby Wine and a significant share of your votes come from the city, you cannot touch a vendor, you can't touch a border, you cannot touch a kiosk owner, you cannot touch so many things because you are compromised by your support base. But if your support base is Chiruhura, is Amolata, is Moroto, then you can do whatever you wish in Kampala. You can crack skulls and get what you want out of the city. So it's already too late. That is one. By the way, I should tell you, Chris, that even these constructions taking place, the contractors, when you are bidding to do a road in a city, you are required to provide a traffic management plan. I am aware that in these contracts, these people, to win these contracts, actually did claim that they would work at night. But working at night requires you putting their floodlights. Floodlights cost a lot of money. But now, once they have done so, I think either the owner's engineer, you know, when you hire a road contractor, as KCCA or UNRWA, you also hire a consultant to supervise the works. Either the owner's engineer is weak or is compromised, but whether you go through Bogolobi, wherever you go, where they're doing roads, they don't work at night. And that's why they're creating, yes, the traffic problems would still be there, but they are made worse by the fact that these people close roads on a Monday morning when it has rained, where they should even have worked throughout the night. And they can, if you do floodlights like this, this is brighter than during the day. So, Chris, we need to go and say contractors work at night most of the time. I live in the United States. If we are giving a contract to do a highway and you bid, there are two things I saw contractors there doing. I had a Ugandan friend who was one of the main, he was working for the government of California to do roads. A company would say, for us, we will only work on the highway between 10 p.m. when traffic has gone down, or 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. That is one. So they will put floodlights, because highways in the United States are not lit, and work at night. Two, we are going to use cement, rather tar. Here we call it colas, but really it is supposed to be called tarmac or whatever, bitumen. The one that dries within 30 minutes. So you can drive on a road in America at 10 p.m. It's bad. You come back the next morning at 5, the road is well done. So things like that need to be done here. Not even for NAM, beyond NAM. I want to ask KCCA, who enforces these rules on the people who are doing roads, because why are they closing roads on Monday morning? So 3, that I wanted to come to. We need to understand that the benefits of these conferences do not come from the conference itself, in the sense that we are going to sell food and all this. I can tell you that is less than 1% of what you are targeting, less than 0.1%. As I started with the Lee Kuan Yew, what these conferences do is all those presidents are going to come with their press corps. Am I correct? They'll come with journalists. Journalists will take videos. These videos will be played on their televisions at home. So what you do is to ensure that when visitors are coming, there are so many good things, they must see, which will induce them to report to their countries when they're telling the story of their president attending, the images people in their home countries see. This is free marketing. On primetime TV, in China, in Vietnam, in wherever it is. I want to know whether we have those nice places for these journalists. So that's one. The second thing is that, you see, Uganda must have a way to sell itself as a destination for tourism to all these people who are coming. I want to, do we have a book, a brochure, but a brochure is too small, that shows these are the resorts, these are the national parks, these are all these beauties that you can visit. This is one of the most beautiful parts of the world. Is it there? So if I come, I'm going to be attending a conference in Munyonyo, but I need to know, because when people come, I have gone to countries to attend a conference, I said, let me go back for tourism. What is it when I sit in Munyonyo in my hotel room at Serena, at Skies in Naguru? What is it that I can sit and sip through that shows me some great thing? Either the Akwet Alex in Kanyandahi, I want people to come to Kanyandahi.
By the way.
Beautiful animals, whatever it is, to go there.
Yeah.
Please tell me, is it there? 3, you see, even the think of investment, if I were the one organizing it, and this is something that should have been done 2 years ago, 1 year ago, is an investment book. What are the opportunities for investment? I've shown you tourism. If I'm an investor, what is it that I should come to? Because I would want to find a book showing this area of real estate, this area of this, or so many, showcasing Uganda and areas where you can put your money.
Other than the stalls.
We haven't, beyond those stalls, because you need to have that book in every single hotel room in Uganda. We have said 10,000 hotel rooms. Each hotel room in Uganda should have something like that. An investment book, a tourism book, and you can also have digital versions so that when the guests are going, each one of them either has it on a flash disk, drive.
Link.
Now, of course, in this age of social media, how do you create content? And it's already late to do these things. Videos of the beauty of Uganda, clips of 30 minutes, 40 minutes on investment, on tourism, on whatever it is, so that when guests are here, in every hotel room, these are played. Because the most important thing is that whoever comes to Uganda must take a story back to their home countries, but must themselves become a potential visitor back to Uganda, maybe with their family. So I feel like we have lost a humongous opportunity by us from the very beginning not investing our time in it. Now, earlier we had said, earlier you had asked me the political significance of the NAM and the G77, given that they are poorer countries. As I told you earlier, the world has significantly changed. I think Omar has spoken about it, Chris has spoken about it. You see, the world has really changed. If you look at the 10 largest economies in the world, Omar uses nominal dollars. I should tell you I don't use nominal dollars. Why? Because it tells me in nothing. Assuming I have $100 Omar in Kampala, and you are Adonia Yabaru, you have $100 in New York. Do we have the same amount of money?
Purchasing power.
Can we buy the same things? So I use what we call purchasing power parity. Under purchasing power parity, for example, if you're looking at global power, the question is, if I am American, I'm trying to weigh the power of China against me. My GDP is 26 trillion. China in nominal terms is about 17 or 19.
17.9.
Yes, but in PPP, it is about 32.
It's higher.
It's 32 trillion. Because why does 32 matter to America? Because you have to ask yourself, if China was to deploy an army against me, how many drones, sailors, missiles, tanks, planes
would come?
China has to buy, and the prices it has to pay in its own currency because it produces these things.
Yeah.
So that determines the relative power, economic power of China.
Yeah.
So for America, it may cost them $100,000 to maintain one soldier in a year. But China, it may cost them 30,000. So where you spend 100,000, the other guy needs. America, it may cost them $3 million produce a particular missile. These guys can produce at 800,000. So now let me come to that. If you look at purchasing power parity, the largest economy in the world is China, followed by America, then followed by India.
India.
So China and India are part of the G77 plus. But within that group, you'll find Indonesia, you'll find Brazil,
Singapore.
among the top 10. So Singapore is too small. It is richer per capita, but in size of economy small. But Indonesia is among the top 10. Brazil is among the top 10. China, India already have 4. Exclude Russia, Germany, Japan. But you see, what we call the G74 could have about 5 or 4 countries in the top 10. Even Turkey. Is Turkey a member?
No, Turkey is not a
member. It's not a
now.
member, okay. But it's one of the big economies of the world. So the world has changed. A lot of the countries that were considered that poor are now have sufficient economic weight. I actually think that if countries of the global south, and this is President Museveni's role, were to cooperate more to adopt common positions at international fora,
yes,
both the economic and the political weight would be felt by the global north. They would feel it. Because as I told you earlier, right now, global manufacturing has shifted from the north to the south. And remember, the north depends heavily on the south for raw materials to power its own whatever little industries they are mining with. And the biggest source of GDP for countries of the global north, let me take for you the United States. What are the biggest firms they have? If you look at the, what we call market capitalization.
Capitalization, yes.
Microsoft, Google,
Ford.
Apple, Amazon, Facebook. Before we go into the banks, even if you talk of their banks, largely the top companies are all in the service sector. Assuming right now we were not selling, assuming right now there was blockage, we can't access Facebook, we can't use Amazon, we can't maybe use Apple's phone, because Apple phones are manufactured in China. They are designed in California but assembled in China, and the parts are brought from countries of the south. How much would the world lose? I should tell you, if I didn't watch Netflix or YouTube, I can continue to live comfortably. One of the reasons why the war in Ukraine shocked the world is that the valuation of the economies of the global south, which produce raw materials, is always underestimated, especially in its ability to sustain life. So if you have a war in Ukraine and people cannot get grain, there is hunger in the whole of Europe and the countries that depend on Ukraine for food. If Russian oil cannot go into the global market, then you have inflation all over because goods cannot move or fuel prices become very expensive. But if Netflix is shut down or YouTube, it's likely that we are likely to live comfortably with minor inconveniences in the services. So Western economies have become much less, they are into the luxury world. A significant share of the economy is produced in those services that people can do without, while the economies of the South depend on things that the world cannot do without. So we have greater political weight because although what we produce is cheap, it is these are basic necessities. And although what they produce is more expensive and therefore high income, a lot of it we can do without. And therefore I believe that the global South, if we cooperate more, and this depends of course on the chairperson, mobilizing his colleagues, this is President Museveni, and I think he will be very good at this, because the issues I am discussing here are things that he has very, very good grasp of. The power of southern economies, our voice is so underrepresented relative to our economic and political weight. You said we form 80% of the global population?
82%.
82%. So that's a very, very big number. So we are really the center of the world, and we are yet we are actually the weakest players in the global system. So if President Museveni can be able to leverage his ideas, his strategic foresight, and all these things, he could make a significant contribution to the voice of the global south in the global fora, and we could be taken quite seriously. So it's not that we are weak.
Ambassador, let me come to you. Andrew, the last two summits have had discussions on Iran and nuclear. At some point, Iran walked out of these. When you look at the coups in Africa, when you look at the poverty, the hunger in Africa, when you look at the political, social, and economic challenges, how does Uganda position itself in these summits to benefit?
I don't know whether the issue of the Iran...
Actually, the attendance was poor for both. And also the discussions were really, as Ambassador had said, really individual.
I feel actually that Uganda is facing a very serious challenge. I think it's our foreign policy, Adonia can correct me, that we don't support coups. It's a government of Uganda foreign policy. I remember that
policy as well. It's an African Union policy.
It's actually an African Union policy, and Uganda tries to implement that policy. I would have, if we had time, I would have told you the story of Chad and how Uganda voted against the process in Chad because of the idea that there was a coup when Idris Deby died. But I would say that President Museveni will need to employ a lot of skill to ensure that you don't alienate those countries which have gone through coups, because he has to come across as the mediator, not as the punisher. If they use NAM and the G27 to punish, they will create divisions. But I am sure he will be very careful to find a way to reach out to these new leaders and those in the opposition to talk to them to see how can we find a solution, rather than you come as a prosecutor, which was a mistake Mandela was making in Burundi. Am I correct? He came with too much judgment. Instead of sitting, you worked with him.
I worked with
him. Many people say Mandela because he came with, when he had already made up his mind. Instead of saying, I want to listen to all the parties. But President Museveni is so good at this. Even when you see the way he works, he thinks in Uganda here. He's the kind of guy who will call these guys in West Africa and try to find a way at accommodating. So that is one that the president here will need to do. How do you become a bridge rather than a prosecutor for those countries that have had coups in violation of the African Union policy? That is one. The second thing, of course, is Iran. The good thing about Iran now is that Iran and America signed an agreement, and America walked out of it. So how do you... So Iran will enter this conference, I can tell you, with a lot of legroom to say, look, we had an understanding, Trump came, unilaterally withdrew from the agreement.
Okay. Ambassador, you had a comment?
Yeah. Thank you. And the good news is that NAM, the orientation of NAM is to express solidarity. It's not a judgmental body. You know, like these countries that have experienced coups in Africa have a seat in NAM, even at the UN. You know, the United Nations does not chase coup makers. They sit there in the General Assembly. It's only the AU, the African Union, because African leaders in their wisdom, you know, Africans have dealt. Actually, one of the issues that we don't talk about in international relations is that sovereignty in Africa has been diluted. The African Union Charter is very unpopular in other parts of the world because it does not respect sovereignty. You know, in Africa, simple, you carry out a coup, you are kicked out. It's as easy as that.
So all these countries have been kicked out now?
Yeah, they have kicked out of the Mali, kicked out of the AU, Burkina Faso, Gabon, suspended. Even in even Guinea, even in their own region, Niger, even in their own regional bodies, ECOWAS, they have been suspended. NAM now is the only forum they have. So they are invited. We have invited them because they are member states of the UN. Once you are member states of the United Nations, you are automatically a member of NAM once you have fulfilled the requirements. So they will be here. And really, even what the African Union does, they give you a roadmap. You know, you restore democracy, you do this, you come back. But what NAM gives you is to get solidarity from developing countries, from all over the world. And even the issues of Iran. The good thing with NAM is that you can come and say, these are problems of my country or of my region. Can you express solidarity and support? And they will support you unconditionally. And that's politically why NAM is very popular with, as you know, as a forum of developing countries. It's not judgmental, like Andrew has said, and that's why you're going to have a lot of countries being represented. Mali has confirmed, and others, so that they will come and say, this is what we are doing in our country. The AU suspended us. We're telling the rest of the world, the president of Sudan, they are members of NAM, although there is a war and it's contested. So it's a very, it's going to be very...
So which delegation is supposed to be set for Khartoum?
It's President, the one recognized internationally, Burhan will come. So basically NAM is a good platform where you can develop solidarity and unity among developing countries, so that you focus on economic development, not politics.
Not politics.
Not politics. So, but we have one problem, of course, that divides NAM is the South China Sea.
Yeah.
And issues of the Middle East. I can tell you, the document we agreed in Baku in July is going to change because of what is happening in the Middle East. And NAM was one of the reasons it was created was to support the people of Palestine.
Yeah.
So Uganda, as a chair, you have seen our voting patterns. It's informed by that policy of NAM to express solidarity with the people of Palestine. You're going to get strong language from NAM on the issues happening in the Middle East. We are going to try and reconcile the South China Sea, because Asian countries have big economy.
Big economy.
$6.5 trillion. I didn't know until I visited Vietnam. The Asian countries, they are 10. You know, and that is minus India. They are big, and they are asserting themselves. They have their problems with China, but we try to mediate, and Uganda stands a chance to really make everybody comfortable, because our view is that regional issues should be left to the region. The AU handles their own issues and other areas. So basically, really, Uganda, President Museveni is very skilled on that. He knows regionalism and global politics. You have to strike a balance, and that's where we will, you know, you have to watch out that space of what will happen in NAM politically and diplomatically.
Thank you, Ambassador. Honorable Mara, coming to you, what do you anticipate as the outcomes of these two summits, looking at both short-term and long-term, and also, if I can give a bit of projections, 2006 showed that we had 334,000 tourists coming in. After the program in 2008, it showed we had gone to 640,000. What are the short-term and long-term anticipations as outcomes?
First, the short term is around trade. President Museveni is very focused around regional integration, intra-African trade, working as regional blocks, issues of markets. I believe that there is going to be an outcome about trade harmonization. One of the things that I've mentioned on the trade barriers, the policies and contracts around the world. I think NAM should be able to resolve that, so that there is actually free movement of goods and services. The second thing which I see is that there will be an attempt really to sell Uganda as a tourist destination. If you remember, not very long ago, tourism was our #1 foreign revenue earner, until COVID came and everything went down south, and we really dropped so low. I think this is an opportunity for us really to say we have all that it takes to attract tourists into the country, although recently, 2 tourists were killed in our parks. I think as Ugandans, we are always very quick to photograph and then post on social media
And give us
and give ourselves negative publicity. So that is actually is called we are doing on goal, as in football. So second one is that tourism, we need to focus on it, so that the visitors can for sure build confidence in Uganda. This is where they can come. It's secure. There's a lot of things to see, as Andrew indicated. The third one for me is that I think the Ugandan businessmen and investors are ready to co-create with international investors, really to push Uganda forward. Currently, we have about 5,000 factories in the country. And our GDP is mainly, again, Andrew, as you said, driven by services other than manufacturing. Manufacturing is still lagging behind. It is an opportunity, really, for us to co-create with the international investors. Business meetings should at least contribute towards something. And we must try. I know that this has been more selected in a way, but I think if business contracts are signed with big names, big entities, it will really trickle down to the rest of Ugandans. So I would like to see that there is an opportunity for us to sign up subcontracts, to follow up on some of the opportunities available here and with the NAM membership, especially the business enterprise within NAM.
Thank you very much. Honorable Agnes, coming to you, there's this new venture of tourism, where it's meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions. Before we even get to that, Honorable Chris is here. How do we message this, that all corners of this country we're pulling in the same direction? Like the way it was said when they found the gentleman cleaning, and they asked him, what are you doing? He said, I'm sending a man to the moon. How do we say we're doing something together for this country? Can this pull us together? What message would be there?
I think for me, this conference comes with about 3 aspects for us as Uganda, as a country and as a people. One, politically, it is serious. It is really already putting us in that limelight of diplomatic prowess and commitment to fostering this international and global cooperation. And that our president is well positioned to handle that. Economically, as you rightly said, in the meetings and events and conferences, as I was coming, I was reading an article where there's an estimation of about $1.2 billion that is expected in just that industry. And so you see that this alone it's a big economic boost to this industry, but also going to other hospitality, general hospitality element of it. And also in that aspect, there's a huge investment in infrastructure, the roads and all that we are seeing happening and all that. So there's going to be, in short term, really, there's going to be, we shall see a lot of job creation and all this kind of thing. But also in the other micro, that's where I come from, and I love that. I think and the minister is here, and I'm glad that we really have a very able and competent team to have this. I think for once, as Ugandans, this is an opportunity that we need to really portray to the visitors who have already actually shown or know that we are at that level that they have confidence in to manage this kind of a global space. I would really hate to see, even if we have our political differences, we have our socio-economic issues and all that, I think we need to look at this as an opportunity that we can leverage in both socio-economical or political issues to take us to another level. It is very bad if visitors are coming to your home and you are the first to say, for us here, we sleep hungry. That man you see there, he doesn't pay school fees. He doesn't do... That is the worst thing we will ever do for our lovely country, Uganda, and for our president. Imagine, did I hear well, this is the 19th, and the other one is the 3rd, isn't it? There's a G77 where we are the first African country to host. So, Honorable Minister, the message, and I know he's capable of handling these things, we really need to ask our people that let us find other places of washing our dirty linens and avoid bringing any issues. There are very many avenues of handling our issues. So for me, the message would be that our country is in the right direction. and in the right space to manage global, regional, and national issues. And there is no way we will again stand up and say, no, we are not good enough, we are all this and that. Because we've already seen that this is not about an individual, it's about a country. And so we need to own, my issue is that the ownership of these events that are coming. We shouldn't leave it as it's a cabinet issue, parliament issue, or anybody. It is a collective responsibility of every Ugandan, including a border. The border should know that in January we are having visitors. If you have been unruly and you drive anyhow, just know that we're having visitors coming to discuss serious issues.
Thank you. Honorable, you had something before I get to the Honorable Minister.
A quick one. You know, there's something Andrew mentioned which we shouldn't lose sight of. Kampala City. You know, this is a city which is actually run out of control. Personally, I'm ashamed to live in Kampala. And when you are in Ginger Runabout, I come from Muyenga side there, and you're trying now to enter Kampala on that Ginger Junction. You don't know whether the traffic policemen are there. You don't know who is in charge. The border moves in whatever direction. If a visitor is here, indeed, if I'm an investor, I would just say, how am I going to live here? I think the Uganda police should try and create order within our own environment. But second, especially on KCCA, Parliament appropriated money to KCCA. Yeah. Now they are doing their work. You find they have, these people are contracting, the contractors. They remove the soil and just throw it by the roadside. There's no order, there's nothing. During the Chogam, you remember they patched that Mukwana road, almost at the last day when the visitors were arriving, the tarmac was still wet. You know, you roll with your car and then those things, get out. This time, Chief, we must make sure KCCA, we have enough time. We should be able to do these roads, let the tarmac settle. We don't want our visitors to come when we are still trying to fix a road. They have the money, and let them do it quickly and do it well. Because the way they are operating sometimes is actually shameful. We discussed it in Parliament today, that after the visitors have gone, let us build this city for ourselves. The 75% of your GDP is made within the 100 square miles of Kampala. If I was President Museveni, whether you have voted for me in Kampala, this is where I get my taxes. I would nonetheless come and fix the road in the city, regardless of who is there. I get your vote or not, but that's where you actually crack the skulls and make sure that the roads are properly done. So I think the onus is on us as leaders, and I think we'll work with the executive to make sure we appropriate enough money for Kampala City. We fix it for ourselves, whether visitors are here or not. I also want to drive in a good city. Isn't you, Ambassador? Yeah, of course. From New York to Kampala, it's a world of a difference.
In fact, you know, Chris, since Chris, the minister, is here, you know, I've been wondering, who cares about Uganda? First of all, I talk to KCC every day.
Yes.
If you drive from Airtel House or African Hotel roundabout,
yes,
going to Bugolobi through this other side of Bugolobi, when you are crossing the railway, they have put a lot of culverts for drainage. The size of culverts is so small for the problem of drainage in that area. I wonder, who do we go to government and say, no, the contractor cannot do this. The kind of drainage we need could be the height of my height, which is 5'9". Of course, they have put bigger culverts on the road that runs from Nakawa, and it's the same contractor, to Luzira. But they should put the same size of culverts, this other side, because you can never solve the problem of drainage. So you ask yourself, who? I am really concerned about two areas. One, the owner's engineer, because the role of the owner's engineer is to enforce the contract. Are you working at night? Are you using the right culverts? Are you following a proper traffic management plan? On Monday, they closed the road to Bugolobi. On a Monday morning.
Without notice.
Without notice. The same thing with us in Muyenga.
Okay. Social media.
But we have Chris here. You maybe take it to cabinet, maybe take it to KCCA, but whatever it is, there must be somebody on a daily basis going on these roads, because visitors will come, the roads will flood, they'll be trying to drive from Kampala, Serena, to Munyonyo. They enter industrial area and their cars sink in the flood. You know, you've seen these things.
And they will be reporting live to their country.
Yes, and the journalists will be reporting.
The Prime Minister is stuck in Uganda.
There must be maybe a committee of government, somebody who's serious, to say if the corners engineer is compromising, if the contracts are wrong, we have to do the right thing to ensure that there can be proper movement of our guests from this side of town to Munyonyo.
Okay. I'm going to give each of you closing remarks, and I'll end with the Honorable Minister there. I'll start with Honorable Agnes here, then Andrew, then Honorable Mara. Your closing remarks.
For me, I want to close it by saying that this is an opportunity that all of us as Ugandans should leverage on, and we need to appreciate that it is an opportunity that has come, and we need to hone it, and we also need to prepare to sustain the post-conference, because usually we look at only the pre and the conference itself, but we need to also be focusing on how do we sustain the investments and the opportunities that will come with the conference.
Thank you very much. Andrew.
I want to pass my chance to the Minister to respond to some of the issues I have raised.
Okay.
I would like to tell our fellow citizens that this is the biggest gathering of head of states and governments ever in this country. And it is really for an opportunity to showcase of a great country that we have. And we need to take the opportunity, prepare the investment opportunities that we have as a country, and make sure that as the visitors go back, they have an opportunity to come back. KCCA and your team, please fix our roads. Fix it in time and fix it timelessly. Otherwise, we cannot have again what happened during CHOGM. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Ambassador, if you can also comment on the 3 years of chairmanship and the year.
Thank you very much. The viewers should know that the role of Uganda will not stop with the summits. Actually, the work begins after the summits, as we chair these two global bodies that represent the interests of the global south. Next year will be particularly very important at the United Nations. There is what they call the Summit of the Future, which is going to look at reform of the UN system across the board.
Yes.
The international financial architecture.
Yes.
The Bretton Woods institutions.
Yes.
And the global south will have a say, given our numbers.
Yes.
So Uganda, you know, under our mission in New York, will lead these negotiations. And the G77, a lot is expected from the global south to really reform these institutions. So we really promise that my bosses at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the President will really do Uganda proud by leading the global south to reform the multilateral institutions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
I have taken note of the issues being raised, including by the Honorable man. That's why I came with a notebook, both a physical notebook and a digital notebook. And definitely the issues being raised are extremely serious. And we shall give feedback to KCCA and the Ministry for Kampala and the concerned authorities. Definitely the government structure is there to do supervision and make sure that things are done, but sometimes there is laziness along the way. And to that extent, the President himself is going to do a physical inspection of all these physical works being done on Friday this week.
Excellent.
And like I said earlier on, the Minister of Foreign Affairs gives an update to Cabinet every 2 weeks with even pictorial and audiovisual evidence of what is being done. So, and I encourage the viewer, the Ugandans, to behave like Andrew Mwenda. If there are issues which are of concern, raise them to the leaders, to all of us, so that we fix them, because these are our roads, these are our facilities. So therefore, I take those issues extremely serious, and we shall engage KCCA and the other authorities. Then my sister raised the issue of patriotism. There is an international journalist who came to me and was saying, and asked me, why do Ugandans hate their own country? I said, why? So when you Google about Uganda, people are just spewing a lot of negativity, yet they are Ugandans. So we behave as if we have another country, which is our home.
Yes.
Really, adding my voice to what Agnes has been saying, Honorable Agnes, that this is a conference for all of us Ugandans. It's not an NRM conference or FDC conference or DP conference. It's a conference that brings opportunities for all of us Ugandans. If you sell chapati, the people buying the chapati won't say, are you NRM, are you which political party? But you will just sell your chapati, or sell your eggs, or sell whatever. So let's put aside our political and other differences and work together as one voice for this country so that we have a successful conference which definitely shall give us many benefits like we have discussed. And the benefits are many. Somebody was asking me a question on the phone that are you going to use NAMU to build for us Akibwa Stadium?
Yes,
I think the people of Lango have an issue with the
Akibwa Stadium. Yeah.
This afternoon we're discussing it in the parliament. But maybe I use this chance to assure him that yes, as a government, we know this concern, and definitely we're going to handle it. Like I said in the parliament, we have already taken a decision as a government to build regional stadia in this country. And definitely Akibwa and Buhinga and Fort Poto are some of the pledges which the president had made earlier on, and they are part of this plan. So I'm just answering the person who was viewing us and you the chance to bring in Akibwa. And the MPs from Lango are really on us pushing for this very stadium. Otherwise, we call upon Ugandan, let's work together, let's be one voice. As government, we are doing everything possible, but we want to plead and mobilize all Ugandans. And we are going to intensify the communication so that every person in Karamoja, in Kisoro, in Moyo Yumbe, in Busia, becomes part and parcel of this NAM and G77 because it's good for all of us as a country.
Thank you. Let me read a bit of feedback coming through. James from Manafa says, Timothy, the summits are different from Choga. What was the economic benefit? How I wish the minister discusses the topical issues objectively than subjective as usual. Okay. Peter says, what does it mean to host the 2024 NAM summit? Greater cooperation, flourishing of trade, increase in our GDP, partnerships, employment, especially short term, are among the benefits of hosting it. Fred from Wakiso says, to Dr. Chris, how is government prepared to handle the usual political spoilers who may want to stage protests for whatever small reason or really have these imaginations to search political capital in this time? Sifas Ediamo from Serere, while I appreciate the economic opportunities that host such prestigious events and brings to Uganda, it brings a mixed bag of feelings and past experiences. During the oil drilling in Bunyoro, back then our people were encouraged to register on the national database, and concerns were raised about the quality of our local food for expats. Gideon Mutumba says he's a hospitality professional. Thank you for the show. Can someone tell us how construction of the convention center has reached? What are the dates of NAM and the G77? Also, Nwagaba from Shema, Kabohe says, thank you for the program and creating awareness within the Ugandan people. Innocent from Kasese, lastly, will say, now that we call on supply of food for NAM and G77, questions arise about the standard expectations food provided if our local people are considered as unsuitable for expats. Oil drilling in Hoima, why is the assumption that the food for them is imported? Haji Kazibwe, Uganda has every opportunity to unlock its landlocked nature. The CHOGAM, the US, and all these other countries for prosperity and register the country in order to convince the local man to begin to create miracles through this. Gentlemen, yes.
The summit. We shall start with the business summit from the 15th to 19th, and then 19th, 23rd. That's when the presidents, the ministers, the governments, the meeting for the governments will take place. So from 15th to 23rd January 2024. Gentlemen, the rest of the questions we shall answer when we come back at another show.
Gentlemen and ladies, thank you. And lady, thank you very much for coming through. But this is my plea to all of us as Ugandans. This is a summit or summits for us. Ownership, regardless of colors, race, or tribe, this comes for both all of us. Don't ask yourself what your country can do for you. What can you do for your country? Good morning.